We have fantastic people representing fantastic brands here on stage, and we'll be getting to that shortly. But if that's meeting them is not enough of a reason to pay attention, I do have one more thing to do. Kind of ironic that this is on paper in a social media thing, but it is what I have. So we're we're offering a 4 seasons experience as well for people that sign up for this raffle. We do have our little room over there. I don't know what you call it, but that room over there. So come out and check us out. Part of the questions that you might have there is based on the information that's shared today. So definitely do pay attention, or giving you another reason to pay attention. So Kate Spade, The North Face, 2 brands with global recognition, 2 brands with global appeal, but perhaps with very unique and different approaches to this topic that we have today, which is the importance of building in creators into the strategy. So I'll go ahead and maybe start some intro. So Maren, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah. Hey everyone, I'm Maren Hamilton, Director of Social and Community at The North Face. I have been working in social since the birth of Instagram, so over a decade now. I'm curious, who else is like an old school social marketer? Yes. Who has like launched a brand on Facebook like back in like 2010? Yes. And who remembers like the original creators, mommy bloggers, YouTubers? Yes. So I think it's really cool to see that it's come full circle, and now Adweek is putting on an event dedicated just to the creatorverse. So I'm excited to share more about our strategy at North Face.
Great. And hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Bopp. I am Vice President of North America Marketing at Kate Spade, where I've been for about 4 years. And yeah, have worked in digital and data and e-commerce for quite some time. And similar to Maren, just really excited to see how the space has evolved, and look forward to talking to you guys more about it.
Yeah, so glad to have you both here. And speaking about that evolution, maybe it leads into the first question. Creators and the avenues where creators have functioned and the role they've played has evolved throughout the years in the last decade, definitely in the last couple of years. Amanda, how has that evolution affected Kate Spade and your relationship with creators and influencers throughout these years?
Yeah, so I think historically, right, the idea behind influencers was there is, person X who has this audience, this really large following, and if we get our products and our brand attached to this person, their X million followers will see it, and therefore everything will be great. The evolution has become much more nuanced and more complex, I think, in a positive way. I think now we think about influencers as a subsegment of creators, and we think about creators as really talented folks who have the ability to take your brand and to express it through a variety of different mediums. Creators are people who can help bring out certain aspects of your brand's personalities, and can also really help you navigate through the fact that the world has gotten bigger, but at the same time, as a juxtaposition to that largeness, there's all these micro communities that have sprung up. So creators can really open the door to those smaller communities. So it's really been rewarding to see that evolution of just, hey, this is a person with a large audience, let's work with them, versus this is someone who has a particular skill, or this is someone who can be really amazing at expressing my brand in X way, or this is a person who can act as a bridge towards a smaller community that we might not have a relationship with right now.
And just to follow up on that, before I ask Maren a similar question, like you mentioned the nuanced approach. In the last couple of years, how has that nuance manifested, let's say, with Kate Spade and specifically?
Yeah, so I think so first of all, it's just kind of exploded for us, right? In the beginning, it was, or at least when I first joined the company, it was more about influencers that you were working with and providing product to, and they would be talking about your brand or product on their own channel. Now we use influencers across the board. We want to use them throughout all aspects of the customer journey. So we're thinking about them within their own channels. We're thinking about them on our own organic channels. We're using them in paid media. We're thinking about how we incorporate them onto our website. So I think that's been a really important evolution, is it's not just their own channels, it's across the board in a 360 way. And then I also think too, like it's really been a different take on, they help us better understand how we can express our brands differently. And way back at the break of the pandemic in 2021, we were having a really big conversation about TikTok and about how to be successful on that platform. And we acknowledged that, we weren't really sure how to best get that done. And so we made a bold decision, and we took two different creators on TikTok, Happy Kelly and Todrick Hall, and we said, let's put them in our brand campaign, and let's create a variety of different content that comes out of that and put that in a variety of different places and spaces. And it was really, really successful for us. So thinking again about influencers kind of performing on their own channels versus how do we bring them into our ecosystem, and how do we really incorporate them throughout the 360 approach has been how we've kind of moved through it.
Wow, and seeing a very omni-channel perspective on that. What about for the North Face? Similar, different?
Yeah. I love what you said about targeting those niche communities, because that's something that the North Face has a long history with. We have been working with ambassadors almost as long as the brand has been around, since 1966. And we have some of the most accomplished trail runners, climbers, skiers, snowboarders on our global athlete team. And we use them in a way, not just for social content, so very 360, where we're targeting those niche audiences, but we bring them in to help us design products, to help us test products. We had just launched our women's Himalayan suit this month, and we had I think 10 to 12 different women athletes on our team that tested that went out and did some crazy climbs in the Himalayas, really making sure that product stood up to our brand promise. But then beyond our athlete team, we also work with creators to connect more with the everyday explorers, because we know not everyone is climbing Everest or free soloing El Cap like Alex Honnold. And so we needed to work with people too that could be a little bit more relatable in the space. And so maybe that's someone who's showing you how to go camping for the first time, or showing you hikes that are nearby the city that you can access easily. All about really just expanding what the aperture of exploration is.
That's interesting. And in that process of making it relatable to these different sets of individuals, I imagine that is thinking and taking into consideration of your customers.
Yeah.
Right. And so to that degree, what role has the customer of the North Face played a role in deciding how you use creators and influencers?
Yeah. The customer has played a huge role. We're a very consumer-centric brand. And so we use a lot of social listing data to see, hey, what are our customers doing? How are they using these products? How do they want to be marketed to? And times have changed over the last few decades where just having a celebrity level or a global athlete level is not who everyone wants to connect with. So we offer a variety of different spokespeople for our brand now.
Okay. What about for Kate Spade? Where does, in this evolution, in this 360 approach, how have you taken the consumer feedback into modifying or affecting or evolving your creator or influencer strategy?
Yeah, so one of the realities of marketing today, for better or worse, is that the consumer has a voice and she is not afraid to use it. And similarly, we have all of the right social listening tools. So we are constantly hearing her feedback and figuring out, how we can, best respond to it. What's been interesting for us is that some of the feedback has actually uncovered opportunities that is literally right within our own backyard. Some of the most impactful creators or influencers that we have are actually our own store employees. And I think that was something that we kind of always felt initially, but until we saw the responses that we were getting when we would do a live stream from the store, or when we would have a sales associate come, and we did this one campaign around Valentine's Day one year to try to connect with male gifters. It was once we started to hear the positive feedback about some of our own sales associates, we realized that those could be important influencers and creators. And so we thought about, okay, how do we best incorporate them into our constellation of talent and influencers that we go to market with.
Wow. How about for the North Face, when it comes to that listening, has it also, as you look at your consumers, because your consumers are also, you said you've had ambassadors since the 60s. I imagine they've been using the North Face since the 60s. So your own creators are your own customers. Are they also opening up that opportunity for new avenues of commerce that perhaps you didn't think about?
Yeah, 100%. I think the pandemic really changed things too, where people were getting outside and adventuring for the first time. Like I mentioned, people going camping for the first time. Yeah. There's a lot more consumer segments that we're able to target now.
And maybe from that, and it's good to bring the pandemic, because I believe that also not only modified how consumers and your customers interact with your brands, but in the flip side, that probably also changed your entire strategy when it comes to paid, when it comes to organic, and an overall influencer strategy. what best practices have you adopted, especially in you know, two different brands, two different aspects, but with also a specific brand recognition, right? And so what practices are you adapting while also trying to maintain that balance of who you are? Amanda, why don't we start?
Yeah, so we were having a hallway conversation before, and this is really like the crux of the challenge around influencers, creators, is what's that right balance between the control the brand wants to hold and kind of that letting go of and saying, like, I'm going to pass over my brand and my product and allow you to kind of make it in your own way. I think one of the things that happened throughout the pandemic is I think we got a little bit looser with it, which I think has been a healthy thing for us. One of the things that we did was we went back and we took a look at our guidelines, and we had to really ask ourselves, like, given all of the evolution in the space, given that shift from, consumers ingesting still photography on Instagram to now looking at, Reels and TikToks and all of those sorts of things, did some of those old guidelines really feel right? And then also too, given the consumer's interest in and really call for more greater authenticity, did some of that control still make sense? So I think it was one, just kind of identifying that the culture had changed and then figuring out within our existing processes and guidelines where were we comfortable adapting to that culture and giving up some of that control. And then I would say, the other piece of it that helped us to get there is we looked at the performance of all of our different campaigns. And one of the things that we saw was even in paid content, we were seeing creator content outperform some of the institutional brand content. So I think we had to go with what was performing. And I think that encouraged us, again, to loosen up a little bit and to lean more into this space.
So the numbers don't lie.
They do not lie. They do not
lie. What about for the North Face, Maren?
Yeah, I was going to touch on the same thing, which is just let creators create. If your brand wants to have full control over the advertising, creators probably aren't the best channel for that. So be ready to do that, release a little bit of that control. But the other best practice that we always follow is that the best creator programs truly solve a consumer need. So we go beyond just your standard promotional content and really try to deliver value for our customers. And so a great example of this is our Summer of Pride campaign. So we partnered with the outdoor drag queen and environmentalist, Patagonia. If you're not following her yet, you need to follow. It's some of the most entertaining content on the internet. And so we could have just been like, hey, Patty, we have a Pride collection. Can you make an Instagram post? But instead, we worked cross-functionally across a bunch of different marketing teams and product teams. And we created an entire event series called the Summer of Pride. And so it's coming back for year 2 this year. And we're really excited about it. But really at the core of it is it's giving value to people. It's actually creating meaningful connections with our queer community customers. It's going beyond just promoting product.
Yeah. So it's not so much chasing the KPI per se, but actually trying to match what you were saying before, how your consumers, where they're at and where they're in the journey, but also what the brand is and what the brand wants to represent, right? Partnering up with Patagonia would have easily been just, well, she's amazing, right? Or you could just like, no, they represent clearly what we're trying to accomplish, what we want to be known for, and going further. A question for both of you, and I think because we have many brands, many people here learning as well, we're all trying to learn from each other, and of course it's easy to learn from both of you because you're on stage. But I guess a question for either of you, have you learned from other brands? Whether it be in the same circle, maybe you want to mention competitors, I don't know if you want to, or from different industries, have you learned from anybody, and if so, what? Maybe Maren, we can start with you.
Yeah. So I always look at inspiration from our North Face partners. So REI is a big wholesale partner of ours. They sell a lot of North Face product. And so they have been doing some really cool stuff with creators, specifically with short form video. So TikTok, Reels, they've really been like leading the charge in the outdoor industry, which is really cool to look to for inspiration. And so to your point, instead of just looking at it as what can we learn with them, we actually said, how can we partner together? So we're actually going to launch a campaign specific about North Face products sold exclusively at REI.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And have you felt that as it is today here, like it is also a collaborative effort? You're learning, you're seeing each other's like successes and failures as well? Are you sharing those pretty honestly as well?
Yeah, which I think is one of the coolest things about this industry is people are really willing to share, to educate each other, to chat. Like the amount of people I've even just met in the hallway that were like, let's get on Zoom next week and talk more about what challenges do you have? Because I probably have the same ones and vice versa.
Yeah. What about for you, Amanda?
Yeah, so, I think for us, I think there's a couple things. I personally am always inspired by beauty brands. I just love beauty, always have. And so there are two brands that I'm inspired by and that the team of people who work on influencer creator look at. One, we look at Glossier quite a bit, which is kind of like the OG of like community brands. And what we really love about them as an example is, or what I personally love about them as an example, is everything kind of flows through. I think going back to your question on best practices, I think one of the things that works really well is that when you have a creator partner who is really in sync and in line with your brand values, because then the content that they make and the messages that they send are really authentic to them and they resonate with the audience. And I feel like Glossier does a great job with that kind of end to end. Along those lines, I think Fenty Beauty is another really great example. I think their commitment towards diversity and inclusivity really comes through in all of the work that they do, particularly in terms of the creators and influencers that they partner with. And again, like beauty just in general, there's so many fun ways in, there's so many, different ways that lots of different people can bring those products to life. So those are some examples of people that we love.
Yeah. I feel like if you want to know what's next in creators, look at beauty. Like they're always a year or two ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, okay, no pun intended, but the beauty of looking at the beauty industry, very creative, I know, is that it's always pursuing, consumer first as well, right? It is very authentic, it is representative, it is diverse, and it is a lot of the things that when it comes to building a creators into your strategy is so important, because that's what your consumers are asking for, right? That authenticity. You can't fake in the beauty world, whether somebody adopts a product or not. And I think the second, I do have a thesaurus, so I won't say beautiful. The second amazing thing about looking cross industry is that you can learn regardless in what industry you're in when it comes to creators and when it comes to building into this strategy. This is what another thing about having an event like this is, that whether you're in the automotive industry or whether you're in retail or you're in CPG or you're in beauty, a lot of your consumers looking for the same thing. Yeah. And I think that's the wonderful thing about this, that you can continue learning and look at whether it be competitors or whether it just be peers in other industries and learn from them. Which brings me to one of my final questions, as everybody wants to learn about how to inject creators into the strategy. What's the future look like when it comes to using creators at the North Face or Kate Spade? Like looking into 2023, where you're at, next couple of years, next couple of months, how are you injecting creators into your strategy, Amanda?
Yeah, I think we're going to continue to keep doing it. We're going to push on 360, as much as we can. Of course, always in ways that feel authentic and relevant to the brand, always in ways that are going to help us connect with audiences, in all of the most positive ways, and bring our brand values of joy, colors, life to the forefront. I think this is an area where we're going to continue to push into. And it's an area, again, that will help us to express different aspects of our brand's personalities and to connect with all sorts of consumers.
Yeah, Mark? Same here. So we're really expanding our efforts. We have our new partner, Social Native. We just hired our first ever in-house content creator manager. So also bringing some more team members on to really help oversee that process and continue to iterate on that strategy, since it's constantly changing.
But I think if I can speak for both of you, two of the things that I really liked about how both Kate Spade and the North Face are thinking about creators is, one, is looking at the data, looking at the numbers, and two, listening to your consumers as well and understanding where they're at or where you want to meet them. I think that also speaks highly as to what type of plan or strategy you should have with them. Maybe one final question before we go to Q&A and have the audience ask. If there was perhaps some advice that you would give to anybody either who's in the similar vein or similar trying to build creators into the strategy, what advice would you give them, Maren?
Yeah. I think for a lot of us, we're working inside larger companies. And so pull people in, like look at people in other cross-functional disciplines. Like the example I gave was Summer of Pride. I think there was like 8 different stakeholders involved in that. We brought in events, we brought in our social impact team, we brought in our diversity team. all to come together and kind of work together towards a common goal. So like use the partners you have within your company.
Yeah, I would say, speaking of partners, I think along the partnership theme, I would say think about the creator landscape as something as really vast and really diverse. So it all depends on what it is that you're trying to accomplish. There are creators out there that can help you do it. The days of like the stereotypical influencer and Instagram influencer are over. There's a lot of richness and a lot of diversity out there. And then the second thing I would say is think about these creators as partners, not just as, points of sale or points of influence. Think about them as true partners. And I think the more that you provide that perspective, I think the better the overall campaign will be.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess we can open it up for Q&As. I saw over there first, and then you, and I think someone's going to rush with a microphone.
Thank you. Hi. I'm with King Arthur Baking, and I'm trying to kind of take everything you're teaching us and convert it into the baking world. So can each of you or both of you give an example of how you listened to your audience and that led to a specific creator hire or creator concept? Like what came from your audience that led to something?
You want me to go first? Yeah. So I'm happy to speak to that. I think one of the things that we're always doing, right, is we're looking at the comments and we're seeing the type of content that people like to see. One of the other things that along those lines, like we did get some feedback a while ago around the models that we were using, and it highlighted an opportunity for us to show greater diversity in terms of body type and body shape. And it was really excellent feedback, and it was something we were able to action on right away. So it was a really great example of the community potentially pointing out a blind spot and us being able to react to it.
Yeah, that's a great example. I'll give another one too that's like super on the nose for that question, so thanks for asking it. We use community management, so commenting back and forth with our customer base on social in a big way at the North Face. And so we had made an Instagram post announcing that we were starting a summer hike series for women, and someone literally just commented, "You should work with a sip of tea." And I hadn't worked with her before. I went to her profile and was like, wow, she's leading all these cool community hikes in Atlanta. Of course we should work with her. And now she's become an ambassador for our Explore Pass loyalty program. Yeah.
We had her. I hate pointing. It's so rude. My mom would hate me for this, but she is. She has a question.
Hi, my name is Priya Singh, and I'm a social brand manager that works with fashion and beauty brands. So my question for you is, how can the fashion industry improve and tap into the creative space or into creators better? Because although the fashion industry is supposed to be the trendsetters, I noticed that when it comes to the digital space, the social space, they're usually the most resistant amongst all the verticals to just tap in and jump into social trends and create, storytelling that really resonates with real people, real consumers, even luxury consumers.
Yeah. So I think fashion can get tricky because it's based on a creative point of view, and I think there's sometimes hesitancy in terms of letting go of some of that control. You are right though, and what I just said is like there's so much creativity within fashion, and I think it's really just I think it's helping to connect the internal creatives, be they design, be they content creation, with some of these creators who really are quite talented in their own right. And as I said earlier, I think there's this misperception based on kind of that first generation of Instagram influencers. There are so many creators who are amazing at all sorts of different aspects of the creative industry. So I think it's helping our internal creative partners kind of bridge any of those concerns and connect them to some of these people who will respect their vision enough to take it and reinterpret it in a way that stays true to the original intent and ethos of the vision. So it's a little bit of bridge building, I think, that has to happen.
I don't know how much time we have. The clock is now going the other way, but we'll keep asking questions.
Somebody pulls us off.
Yeah, someone pull me off with the music.
Hi, I'm Baishal, and my question is more so about how do you assess when to use a micro or macro influencer, especially those niche creators that you're kind of talking about and alluding to?
I'm really glad that you asked that, actually, because I think if it was a year ago, 2 years ago, I would have had a totally different answer. And just the way that people are consuming content now, kind of that old like pyramid has kind of been thrown out the window, right? So it used to be that you'd use like a macro or a celeb level for mass reach. Well, someone can go viral on TikTok that only has 10,000 followers now. So we really just look at it on a campaign by campaign basis. And we're actually more focused on who's the right person to connect with than the number of followers these days.
Yeah, I would
All
just
right.
build on that and say
Yeah,
about
finish.
authentic. Sorry. I was just saying it's about how well that individual connects with their audience, not so much about size of following.
Yeah. I believe we're being asked to get out on stage, but you can find us up there on the Social Native booth, or you can find both Maren and Amanda. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you, Maren. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.